Good afternoon. Alyssa Rizzo here, weighing in on the growth we're about to see in the next 5 to 10 years in the funeral industry. With capacity increasing, families have now been able to physically gather in celebration of life of their loved ones. During COVID, funeral homes were forced to limit gatherings to no more than 25 people, and at one time, 10 people. When the families could gather, kitchen areas were closed, so this forced families to serve refreshments outside their vehicles. As things slowly return to normal, families have decided to come together for memorial services and celebrations of life. Without the presence of the body, though, families and funeral homes have to get creative in making sure that the family feels their loved one's presence. This area of personalization, I think, is what we're continuing to see to grow. So instead of focusing on the body, families are going to be looking to memories using photos, possessions, and even work created by the decedent. There's no argument about the psychological and emotional benefit of a visitation, but if it's not the wish of the decedent or it's not financially feasible, then a memorial service or celebration of life is a solution and potentially a big trend in the future. So during arrangements, one of the most common questions we get from the family is, what happened if they weren't that religious? Traditionally, memorial services were religious based, and we still see that in the funeral home today. For example, as a memento, we have prayer cards. Well, what if not everybody's comfortable with prayer? Now, we can offer booklets, bookmarks, programs. So this also opens the door to celebrations of life being held in places outside of the funeral home. For example, 6.7% of respondents have attended a tribute at a hotel, and this was an increase of 4.8%. Other locations, as we saw, that had a rise in being a venue were homes, outdoor settings, banquet halls. And this is part of the reason as to why families are choosing venues outside of the funeral home. One of the numbers I thought to be extremely interesting was the preferred way of making funeral pre-arrangements. Even though these families are gearing towards more do-it-yourself services, they still feel more comfortable speaking to the funeral director themselves. We saw an increase from 73.4% in 2020 to 75.6%. Families preferred to speak directly with the funeral planner as opposed to the 24.4% that preferred it online. As I spoke with our pre-planning counselor here, Steve Girding, and he agreed that once things began to open back up, we saw an increase in pre-planning, and even though he provided Zoom meetings and phone calls, these families still preferred to come in themselves. These surveys are really interesting because based off of the numbers, it would seem that families were going more towards in the direction of do it yourself. They're creating these great memorial services. They're stepping in to do the obituary. However, they still prefer meeting with the funeral director, and they don't feel comfortable planning things themselves. So as we start to branch out and see, these gatherings taking place in hotels and homes, it's time for the funeral director to, step up for their families and help them go navigate through this new venture in the funeral industry. So another prediction that I have is that for pre-planning, they're going to continue to increase the demographic that needs to be pre-planning. They're not comfortable with technology, then that's part of the reason I feel that they're coming in now to meet with the funeral director, because they are more comfortable with face-to-face. But that's not to say that the funeral industry shouldn't continue to promote themselves on social media, because as this generation becomes older, maybe they will be more comfortable speaking with somebody online or via phone call. And then 3, I think that obviously social media is constantly changing. People don't typically use Facebook to find funeral homes, and I don't think that's going to differ. Personally, I think Facebook is seen as a little bit unprofessional, so that's not going to be my first choice of finding a funeral home. However, this does mean that funeral homes should definitely take more consideration into what they're putting on their website. I think we will begin to see an increase of pricing as these families are becoming more savvy and shopping around for the funeral home that's going to be the right fit for them. So I hope you enjoyed this commentary, and I am interested to see what your predictions are. Thanks.